Jade and Becca, thank you for joining me here in Felixstowe Library today. It's August 2022, the sun is shining, it's one of those hot days that we've been having this summer, and you're both senior practitioners with Ormiston Families with the Breaking Barriers service, and I'm hoping you can tell us all about that service and how you're helping children and families. Who would like to start? Who would like to introduce the Breaking Barriers service?
Do you want me to take it? Okay. So Breaking Barriers is a service for young people affected by the imprisonment of a close family member. So it'd be mum, dad, sibling, step-parents, uncles, aunties, anyone that's sort of in that close circle, and we support young people between the ages of 4 and 19, so quite a big age range, and generally support them with their understanding of imprisonment. So quite often they're sort of thrown into the situation and don't have much awareness of what prison is, why people go there, and it can be quite a scary thing, obviously.
It must be,
and they sort of, we always say they carry like a hidden sentence because they're sort of having to deal with all of this quite often on their own, because it feels like just they're going through it. It's not something that's widely spoken about in school, or between peers. Sort of information sharing, but also support around emotional well-being, so managing all those feelings, because quite often it can lead to lots of different feelings, feeling anxious, lots of worries, anger it can present as anger, so that sort of leads us into the behaviour side where it sort of manifests in different behaviours. So
yes, in school and at home, and just
definitely.
in sort of friendships.
100%. So
those are some of the themes that you have to help people with.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you often get referrals? Who refers to Breaking Barriers?
Well, I'd say schools mainly, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, so we receive referrals predominantly from schools, wellbeing teams, staff teachers, deputy heads, anyone really within, somebody that works within that support network for that child.
It must come as quite a sort of shock to a family, to a child, or I suppose sometimes maybe not, but particularly to the child, I suspect. And I guess sometimes the police will turn up at a home to make that arrest. And I can't imagine actually how that will leave a child of any age kind of trying to cope with that and trying to process that. So what kind of interventions, what kind of techniques, how do you help them to start to address all of the impact that must have on them?
I think what you've said there is key. That is what we find, is that those children and young people are left. They're the ones that have the hidden sentence. They're the ones that are sort of left high and dry once their loved one's left home. And like you say, if a child's experienced an arrest in the home where there's been a police raid, for example, then that obviously can leave a huge amount of damage behind. And we do see that. We do see that families are in need of support, not necessarily sure of what is available, but also not really processing what's happened, and therefore referrals can often be delayed because they are trying to process what's happened. They've perhaps experienced the stigma and aren't really sure how it's going to be received at school, in the community. But in response to your question, I think the key for us is to give a child or a young person the freedom to express what they need to express and to identify and invest our interest in what they like, what they are keen to do, what their hobbies are, and give them that open space to be able to explore that and feel safe to do so, to enable them to feel happier while they're perhaps processing information that they're not sure about, they don't understand. And we use a lot of creativity, don't we? We use a lot of sort of play therapy techniques, arts and crafts, activities, games, to just give them the courage to be able to explore what they enjoy again, really.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot of said about what happens in prison. They must sometimes be worried about what's happening to, I guess usually it's dad or a male family member, because I think the vast majority, I looked up, what percentage of people in prison are male and female, and it was something like 96%. are men of the prison population. So I guess it is usually going to be dad. But I can imagine that there would be a fear of what's happening to dad in prison, and sort of worry perhaps about him. And how do you help?
Yeah. So obviously we do find also, we agree that the majority of our referrals are based on dad, stepdad going to prison, but we do still receive referrals for mum having left the family home, gone to prison, and I think it's fair to say that although it is predominantly dads, we are still geared up to supporting families that perhaps are in the social care system or have a family support worker. We support families who the child may have been removed from the family home temporarily, perhaps with a grandparent. So we recognise that there are vast differences between each case. So we very much tailor our work to that child in particular. And for us, it's about focusing on their needs and doing an assessment based on, what do they like, what do they dislike, what do we hear that they're not necessarily saying, but that's resonating through some of the fun stuff that we do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was going to pick up on that and just say that all of we do sort of 6 to 8 sessions. So although it seems quite short term, they are very tailored to each child's needs.
We will ask and encourage them to think about what they enjoy, and from that we can sort of draw out what needs to be recognised or worked on. It might be that the child is particularly struggling in school to stay focused and concentrate, for example, or they are finding themselves getting quite sort of angry in school or at home, but we're not necessarily there to provide a really sort of an approach that's kind of directly aimed at that, but we'll draw it out from some of the fun creative things we do, so that they have the ownership of the outcomes of what they want to achieve in those sessions.
And I suppose there's got to be challenges in doing that, and I can imagine that having gone through those 6 to 8 sessions, usually things might unravel again. I could see it not impossible that the school coming back and going, it was going really well, but we're now 3 months on, and actually things are unraveling, and clearly the child is struggling hugely again, and that's coming out in their behaviour and how they're coping and friendships. And can they come back to you? Can people come back to you and go, help?
Sorry, Joanna.
Sorry, I was going to say, so we come from a trauma-informed approach, so we provide sort of play therapy techniques to enable the child to be able to cope with those sort of big emotions and those feelings that they need to manage or understand even. And we also provide that kind of trauma-informed approach in the form of a presentation to schools. We can often show what sort of work we do and how we combat things that we have and those challenges that we do find. So we're always open, aren't we, to kind of supporting a school alongside the work we're supporting the child with. And in the same way, we can support remaining parents and families if they need advice about prison or need a bit of insight into how to manage prison visits and make those smoothly and make that sort of transition into their journey through the sentencing. And how we can do that is we do work as very much a multi and a joined up approach. And that's key, is that we're working with schools, we're working with social care, we're working with the families, because we want to provide a sort of a very much a holistic support system.
Yeah, it's that like building their social network and making sure that when we do finish, although it is 6 to 8 sessions, the aim is to leave these children with the coping mechanisms and the resilience, so that it's not saying everything's going to be absolutely fine now. It's actually there are going to be sort of waves and ups and downs, but here's the tools to manage whatever life throws at you. And I think so it is building those relationships, it's leaving them with sort of how to manage worries, how to manage anger, but also identifying that actually we do accept re-referrals. So it might be that maybe we work with a young person where dad or mum, whoever it is in prison, and 6 months time dad's now coming out, and that brings up a whole another mixture of emotions, because it's adjusting to them being in prison, but it's also readjusting to them coming out of prison.
Absolutely.
And how do we,
what does it look like?
Yeah.
Often families aren't sure what it's going to be like. It's the unpredictable and the unknown, and that can raise all sorts of anxieties with the child.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
so
it must be very different if you're working with a sort of 4, 5, 6-year-old or an 8, 9, 10 or it must have to be very adaptive. But what kind of, is there a more common age? Is it mostly primary school children who you have referred to, or is it actually?
I think it's quite varied.
I think it's very varied.
So you really have to be very adaptive.
Yeah, you do.
So you might be sort of Play-Doh or plasticine one, or it might be doing something on paper with.
Yeah, it does really, it varies. You might be seeing like a 5-year-old in the morning and then like a 19-year-old in the afternoon, but I think it is just being really led by that young person. But like you say, with the young ones, it is having your toolkit of all, like, the playthings.
No, absolutely.
Whereas with the older ones, it's more just having a conversation and offering that safe space for them either to vent, or they might just want to talk to someone who isn't their family member. Sometimes it's a bit too close, and there's feelings involved. So having someone who's completely removed from the situation, I think it's just feeling like, I can just, let it all out to this person, and they can take some of it and, take the weight off of them.
So just this week, to give you an example, as we offer a very consistent approach throughout the school holidays, just to kind of keep that rapport going and build that trust in the young person, I went to visit 2 siblings in the home. One of them is vastly younger than the elder, so I did the Play-Doh and the sand bottles and memory bracelets with the younger, and then the older one we actually went out for a walk and a talk. So actually it was quite nice to take the older child away from that situation, to give him a bit of a breather, and offer support for both of them, but in very different ways.
Yeah, that's a new sort of thing that we've been doing, is the walk and talk, especially over the holidays, because like Rebecca said, we will do the sessions in the home over the holidays more often, because schools obviously aren't open, but actually for the older ones, sort of teenagers, I think they prefer to actually have that. The home it works in some situations, but actually it can be quite hectic, and space. So actually, and also when the weather's like this, you think actually it's lovely to get outside, and it's all good for the mental health, getting outside and get a bit of fresh air. So I think that's a really nice option for them.
Is there a phone number in between? I'm particularly thinking, I suppose, of the older ones, but then lots of children in primary school have phones too, don't they? Is there a text or a phone that is kind of a team number that they can contact you if they're like having a crisis moment and they think, help?
So I suppose what we always sort of try to explain is that we aren't sort of an emergency service, so it's really difficult, because obviously we want to be there when they are in that crisis stage. So I suppose what we try to do is that sort of building on their resilience, but also helping them to know what help is available if they are at a crisis point. So like helping them to access support from different agencies. So if we are noticing sort of deteriorating mental health, we'll make sure that we're signposting, or we're putting them in contact with those numbers and those people, so that before it gets to that crisis point. So I think we do try to be that sort of middle person in some, whereas we can't sort of, I suppose, be given that crisis emergency, because we work sort of 9 to 5, and you never know when these crises it could happen. So it's helping to create that safety blanket, so that if they do need that support, it's there already, I think, isn't it?
So you're obviously helping children and young people in families in Suffolk, and then I think you've got colleagues in Essex and Cambridgeshire and Bedfordshire, so East Anglia, really,
and Norfolk as well.
Norfolk. So, but I guess people who are in prison, they might be at High Point in Suffolk or Warren Hill or Hollesley Bay, but equally they could have been placed anywhere in the country.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think you do have a family visitor centre base in High Point, is that right?
Yeah, so High Point, and then Hollesley Bay, Warren Hill, I think we've recently Norwich, I think.
So we've got...
Have they reopened? Because presumably with COVID that would have stopped those visits happening?
Yeah, so they are now reopening the social visits. They are having the general visits, which are, I think they offer them midweek and at weekends. They're back up and running. In some of our prisons, they're not quite running to the same capacity. They're probably limiting numbers still, and I know that they are still giving consideration to where families wait before their visits. So it might be that, luckily it's summer, that they'll wait outside, but they have resumed, to some degree to a normal level again, and our teams are still operating usually with dads and whatnot inside.
Yeah.
So that's good for the families.
Do you hear from the family member who's in prison at all? Do they ever reach out and go, thank you, or
It's difficult, isn't it? I suppose we have a lot of contact with the sort of remaining parents in the home, so helping with advising them on how to tell the child and on visits. I suppose we have limited contact with the imprisoned family member, but I think that is an area that we are, I would be more than happy to have those conversations, because I think they would really be pleased to know what support their child's getting. And I think in the prisons where we have Ormiston colleagues, there's been cases where we've sort of tied up with them, so like they're working with the person inside the prison, we're working with the family, and it's a really nice joined up approach, isn't it? So it can work.
And we often work with probation, so we work with probation services, or social care system. We work as sort of very much a multidisciplinary approach, and even probation on the outside, sometimes we have to make contact with them, or vice versa, if they need to sort of give us an update, or again if we need to report back or anything. So that's quite nice.
If someone first hears about you after the family member's been discharged from prison, so they've actually returned home, and then the school go, all sorts of things are happening now, and need help, can they refer then, even though in fact the person has left as they can?
I think we say generally sort of within the 6-month window of them being released, but I think we do sort of review it case by case. So it might be that, like you say, it could be a delayed reaction, or it could be that having that family member come back into the home has actually really disrupt the young person. So I think we're quite flexible in what we consider each referral on a case by case. But I think it's we try to stay within that sort of 6-month period if we can.
And I guess it helps you to have people from other groups and services, especially those, well most people are working with, we're all in families and part of larger families, and we're all networks and friend networks, and then whether we're working with children directly, if you're working with adults, they're part of families. So it's kind of helpful if everyone has, to my mind at least, the Breaking Barriers service on their kind of radar of what's out there, because you never know who you're going to meet, and that they might mention that they're within their circle there is a family member in prison and they have children, and there might be some help that you could give.
Definitely. I think that's sort of the aim, is that the most people that we can reach know about the service, because like you say, it could be with professionals, within schools or social services, or different agencies might come into contact with these young people, but actually within our own families and our own friends, you never know. And I think, like I said before, where children often feel like they're the only one going through it, but obviously we day in day out see how many families this affects.
Well, I think that's very true in many situations where there might only be, I suppose, 1 or 2 children in a primary school who don't know who each other are. And maybe some of the staff won't know that that's the case, because it's treated very confidentially, I suspect. But, so there's probably, I guess there are a lot of children affected in a county with a population of over 700,000 people, but quite scattered. So 1 or 2 in this village, 1 or 2 in that village, a few in that town. And then the risk is that there are pockets where people just don't know it's even there. So I think we can all help to raise that awareness. I made a note of the sort of the contact details, so I hope I've written this down right. So So I made a note that the email address was bbreferrals@ormistonfamilies.org.uk, and then there's a telephone number which was 01473 724 517.
Yeah.
And of course, if someone goes to the website, www.ormiston.org, they can see Breaking Barriers as one of the tabs and open that and get all the information. Really
definitely.
See lots of detail.
Yeah, and if they sort of go, that number's I think our general inquiries line, I think.
Yeah.
So if anyone does want to ring them, they can then put in contact with either of us, and we're happy to just have a chat, like an informal chat. You don't have to go sort of straight into the referrals. It can be just chat over and whether we can support, or even if just some advice over the phone to manage in that instance.
As I say, we often receive inquiries to the email address, actually just asking, certain questions, or it might be that they want to relay what's happened, and we'll give them some insight. And as I say, we do often signpost as well. So it could be that if we don't know the right answer or the right support, then we can often signpost to where we think they could go to as well.
So they could drop an email and say, Jade and Becca, I've watched the film.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me more about the service?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then you can send them the information. Whether they're someone working in a group or service, or working in a school, working with families and whatever. I mean, I'm thinking, our friends in the Job Centre Plus centres, in Sisters Advice, there's lots of places, lots of things. Libraries, we're here in Felixstowe Library, the library staff here, the people working today, helping in the children's section. You never know what conversation, what might come up, and someone might just think, I know a service that might be able to help you. So let's just hope that having this conversation and sharing it just does a little bit more to raise awareness, although I'm sure lots of people know that the service is there already, but it can do no harm.
I think that's it.
We might just reach one more person.
Yeah.
If we reach one more family, then that makes it worthwhile.
100%. Yeah, I think that's it. It's just keep having the conversation, isn't it? And if we can get those referrals in, when the child needs that support, and that people are aware, so that they can pick up on, it just means that child is getting support earlier on, and they're going to be able to flourish. I think that's what we want. We want safe, happy children.
I think you said at the beginning they're the victim in this situation, in a sense. I don't know if victim's the right word, but they've kind of got a sentence of losing mum or dad for perhaps months, perhaps years, which they themselves have done nothing to create. So they need help. And I'm very grateful that you're there to help them.
Thank you very much for having us. And if anyone does want to chat it over more, or we like Becca said earlier, we're happy to come and do talks to even just different organisations, or just have informal chats within groups. Just so if you want to, or just throw some questions at us, any time.
So if you'd like Becca and Jade to talk to you and talk to your team, then please get in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much. Thank you.